Hey guys, Scott here. Let me just say this straight up. Every single month I sit here, I look at the numbers, I look at the reports, and I honestly wonder how much longer Aussies are supposed to keep up with this. House prices continue to go up. Even when the rates are going up, the rates are going down, it doesn't matter. House prices keep moving up. And then you look at the rental market. Now, where is all this actually headed? And what are people meant to do in the middle of all of this? Because on one side, you've got demand piling up nonstop. Population growth, migration, and now another wave of buyers being pushed into the market through government policies that are meant to help. And on the other side, the housing supply fix that the government keeps promising Aussies is still years away. Completions are at record lows, and there is absolutely nothing happening right now that actually slows this market down. That's the part which is totally confusing. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the latest rental data that just came out, what it's really saying and why this keeps getting worse, who's actually to blame, and where this is headed in 2026. And right at the end, I'll tell you what this means for renters, buyers, and investors making their next move. I do these videos daily on property, the economy, and how it impacts your decisions. Hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss an update. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the reality on the ground, because this is catastrophically unhealthy. National rental vacancy is sitting around the mid 1% range. Before COVID, a healthy rental market sat closer to 2.5 to 3%. And I want you to understand what that difference actually means in plain English. When vacancy drops below 2%, renters have no power. That's when inspections turn into chaos. That's when you see queues, dozens of applications for one property, and rents rise whether people can afford it or not. Now layer this on top. Rental listings nationally are roughly 11% lower than a year ago and about 17% below the previous 5-year average. So it's not just demand staying high, it's the actual pool of rental homes shrinking at the same time. And the numbers reflect that pressure. National rents rose 1.3% in the December quarter over the previous quarter. On an annual basis, rental growth accelerated to 5.2% across 2025. And zoom out just a little further. Over the past 5 years, rents are up nearly 43% nationally, adding more than $200 a week to the typical household. That's the reality Aussies are living in right now. And I honestly don't know how much more slack there is left in the system. Now let's take a look at this. Building approvals are up, but what does this actually mean? Because this is where the frustration really kicks in. Every time things start to boil over, we hear the same talking points from the government. Approvals are rising. Policies are being rolled out. Targets have been set, and on the surface it sounds reassuring until you remember one simple fact. Approvals do not house anyone today. What matters is building completions, actual homes, keys in hands. And right now it takes around 1 year to build a new home from approval to completion. So let me ask the obvious question. What are renters supposed to do between now and maybe 2 to 3 years? That's why this crisis feels endless. The help always arrives after the damage has already gone too far, after pressure has already hit a breaking point. By the time supply shows up, the pain has already been locked into the market. Now yes, demand matters, of course it does, but this isn't just a migration story. This is stacked demand colliding with a broken supply pipeline. You've got first-time buyers stuck renting for longer because prices move faster than wages. You've got smaller household sizes after COVID, people working from home, more space per person is now needed, more households competing for the same stock. And then on top of that, the government rolls out buyer-focused policies that sound helpful, but actually inject more demand into a market that's already short on homes. This means only one thing: demand keeps rising. Supply stays constrained, vacancy stays tight, and renters pay the price. And this is where people try to talk themselves into relief. They say, surely rents can't keep rising. People just won't be able to pay. And yes, there is a limit to affordability, but here's the uncomfortable truth. When renters hit that limit, the market doesn't magically fix itself. People compromise instead. They take on extra housemates, they move back in with parents, they downgrade, they move further out. They cut back on everything else. That doesn't fix the housing crisis. That means Aussies are lowering their standard of living just to survive. That is not a solution. So who's actually responsible? Who is to blame for this rental crisis? This crisis didn't start last year. It didn't start 2 years ago. This has been building for decades. Years of underbuilding, planning delays, infrastructure lagging housing, a shortage of tradies, construction costs blowing out, and a public sector that simply hasn't delivered enough homes. And instead of tackling the root problem, we get policy band-aids slapped over a bullet wound. We have announcements by the government, press conferences, and targets with no delivery. Renters don't live in press releases. They live in the real world where supply is tight, competition is brutal, and stability is disappearing. So what does this mean for renters, buyers, and investors? And what do you actually do with all of this information? Now, first of all, if you're renting, you're not imagining it. This is genuinely hard. The best thing you can do right now is protect stability. Make decisions that keep your housing secure, because this isn't a short-term wobble that disappears in a few months. If you're a home buyer trying to get in, if you can get into this market. Maybe compromise on what you're looking for so that you can secure a property and get on the property ladder. Don't sit there grinding for a perfect 20% deposit or looking for the perfect property. If you've got 5 or 10% and the numbers stack up safely, start looking. And if you can't buy where you live, rent where you live and buy where you can afford. There are still pockets around the 700 to 800K range across the country if you're prepared to look wider. If you're an investor, whether people like it or not, investors are needed right now because the government is not bringing enough supply online fast enough. We need everyday investors funding new builds, adding rental stock, and easing pressure on vacancy. And if you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for a perfect moment, remember this: bargains don't show up when everything feels calm. They show up when sentiment is messy. And right now, you often have more negotiating power than you will when the next wave of buyers floods back in. Now, I generally want to hear from you. What do you think happens next? Do you see any real relief coming in the rental market, or do you think this keeps grinding higher into 2026? And how is this affecting your decisions right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I generally want to know. And if you want daily updates on property, the economy, and what it means for your next move, hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss an episode. As always, this is your daily property update, your 5 to 7 minute breakdown of what's really happening in the Australian property market so that you can be a property insider. I'll see you at the next video.